Good morning and welcome to Company Culture with Yvette C. Owens, where we explore behaviors and things that really impact your culture, and how you behave within that culture really defines your organization far greater than anything that you could ever say, anything that you could ever, their products. It really is gives people the impression of your culture, who you are, and what you're bringing forth. And today I have a very special guest, Barbara Ingracia, who is from Manage Copyright. And I want to share with you, if you're just coming on, I want to encourage you and let you know I am Yvette C. Owens, the host of this broadcast. I come to through every Thursday morning at 7:30 to talk about those topics that might kind of go undercover, that you're not really aware of, that really you should pay more attention to. And I think copywriting and managing your content, owning it and protecting what you're saying, as well as how you're saying it, because we do a lot of research, right? And how that's really impacting. So we're not really jeopardizing all the hard work and the business and everything that we're doing by making one small mistake that could really cost us a great deal. So, why I felt this was so important, I am the founder and CEO of Destiny Speak, and I've just launched a program, Destiny Speak Out Loud, where I'm encouraging people and I coach individuals on owning their identity, understanding who they are, and it's okay that who you are. You were created exactly how you were intended to be created. The thing is to figure out how to nurture that and make your voice come out loud, be able to know your value, your worth, understand where you're to anchor. And because some many times we have many thoughts and many ideas, and we don't know how to really anchor on start, as well as how do you how do you get through some of those difficult patches and have some of those difficult conversations, and even build a network and build those relationships that will help you sustain your voice, your purpose, whether it's a business, whether it's a ministry, whether it's you going through your career. And so I felt that the work that Barbara is doing around managing copyright and bringing it to light for people is so important, because Destiny Speak Out Loud, which is my new program, if you're going to be using your voice out loud, you really need to make sure, one, you're protecting your message, and two, that you're not making any detrimental mistakes. So let me just introduce Barbara. Welcome, Barbara. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we were introduced by Christine and we were able to connect. And so let me just share that Barbara has a certification in copyright management and digital content licensing, and is a speaker and a trainer. So we share that as well in our work, both of us speakers and trainers. She has a passion for raising awareness of the role of copyright in our daily lives, and how we can use copyright as a tool to achieve our goals. We are all consumers and creators of copyright protected works, and understanding some copyright basics can help us achieve our goals and avoid unpleasant surprises. Barbara enjoys bringing some fun, and I've experienced that. She's creative in bringing this topic to fun to a serious and important topic. She is the president of Manage Copyright. She helps organizations navigate copyright law in the digital age by facilitating a review of their public presence, developing best practices, and training their staff. Barbara's motto is manage copyright, don't let it manage you. She comes from an academic library background, so who said librarians were boring, right? And
Right.
grew and grew up on a dairy farm. She has studied the murkiness of copyright law, with the Center of Intellectual Property at the University of Maryland, the Special Libraries Association, Duke University, and Berkman Center at Harvard Law School. She enjoys facilitating workshops, webinars for various professional organizations, and consults with individuals both virtually and face to face. Will you please all help me welcome to Company Culture with Yvette C. Owens, Barbara Ingracia. Hallelujah. Hey, Barbara, thank you for joining.
Well, thank you so much again for inviting me. And I do have a passion for this topic, and I'm so pleased that you do as well.
Yes. So can you share more about your
and
work?
We are all creators. Well, first of all, I do come from a library background, and as print evolved into electronic, I began negotiating licenses, and that rolled over into copyright compliance education. And I enjoyed that very much. I sort of served as a filter between students, faculty, and staff, and university council, who weren't there to answer questions about, oh, I don't see a C in a circle. What does that mean? So I consider, as you mentioned, copyright to be a gray, murky ooze. And if I would get up to my chin in gray, murky ooze, I would turn to university council. They would throw me a rope and pull me out of the quicksand so that things could proceed. So I have been doing that independently as managed copyright for a few years. So I want to emphasize that this is information that I'm sharing, and it's not legal advice. So legal advice has to come from an attorney. But as you mentioned, I have a passion for this mission of raising awareness, because copyright is complicated. It's confusing. It is this gray, murky ooze. How am I supposed to behave? So I enjoy helping people navigate.
That's awesome. So as I'm sharing and releasing this program, Destiny Speak Out Loud, and encouraging people to use their voice and really be able to walk in their purpose, on purpose, with purpose, and I'm coaching them and helping them put all these components together. What would you advise them from a copyright perspective and content management perspective?
Well, I see copyright as having a role throughout that process, from the start, from the idea all the way through to launching and releasing. As we're creating, as we're writing, we are doing research, as you mentioned. And so we need to keep track of that from the beginning, what we got, where we got it from, so that we can cite it as a reference. I don't know how many remember the days of the night before the term paper is due and frantically searching to find out, where did I get that? Where did I get that? So having those in line, and that's especially true if you're going to be using images. Where did you get them? Do you have a license? How could you get your hands on that license in a matter of minutes? So that inventorying is important. Then, of course, as you're writing, there may be things that you're going to quote. There may be large sections that are relevant. And so knowing where those are, and again, if you might need permission to use those, as you're polishing, you may decide, oh, this is pretty valuable to me. I'm going to make sure that I have the C in the circle and the year and my name or my organization's name, whoever's going to be the copyright holder, and typically saying all rights reserved. That's not really a copyright thing, but that's what we typically see. So one of the changes in the digital age is that this C in a circle, is no longer required. So you might not see a C in a circle. So you might think, oh, okay, that's free to use. But it's best to assume that anything on the internet is protected by copyright until you can determine otherwise. And so I always encourage you to use that C in a circle on your original work as a heads up to people that, oh, okay, this is copyrighted. But to really put some teeth to that, I recommend registering your babies with the U.S. Copyright Office because that creates a public record, a dated public record, and is important sometimes if push should come to shove and you had to prove that it's yours. And an advantage is that should you have to register, bring a lawsuit in federal court, you can get statutory damages, attorney's fees. And so for maybe $55, something like that, it is wonderful protection. And in fact, in the United States right now, copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. So that can be a very long time. And so that's very inexpensive insurance.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think this is a really important topic for entrepreneurs or creators of organizations, creators of movements, because we often think about, yeah, register your business, register your ministry or your movement, the entity itself, but we don't think enough about registering your intellectual property. Could you just help people understand what intellectual property is? Because I think too often we're going around discounting or leaving a huge value treasure unprotected because we're not focusing on that. So can you share, because there's people with great ideas around, they think about products and patenting and all that kind of stuff, but as you say, in the digital world, and as we're creators of content and movements and business, there's intellectual property we need to protect. So can you talk to that?
Well, yes, we're all familiar with physical property, everything around us, but it all began as an idea, as intellectual property, sort of intangible. And that's why it's sometimes difficult to realize that it is property that is to be protected. So we're familiar with patents, protecting inventions or methods. We're familiar with trademarks, which protect our brand. They're sort of our public reputation. And to protect ours, so the consumer isn't confused, we can register our trademark, although that's not required either. What we encounter usually on a daily basis is copyright, both the things that we are encountering and would like to use, and, as you say, what we create. There's one more type of intellectual property that I always like to share, and that's trade secrets, which means you don't tell anyone. Now, the perfect example of all of this is the Coca-Cola bottle. Its unique shape, that little curve, that was patented in 1916. Prior to that, bottles were just straight. Of course, we have the whole florally Coca-Cola trademark, and you usually see a little R in the circle that it's federally registered. All of their advertising would be considered copyright eligible or copyrighted, whether it's in print or in the media. But then Coca-Cola has a trade secret. No one person knows the recipe for creating Coca-Cola with that special little snap. Scientists have analyzed what all the ingredients are, but there's just that something that makes it Coca-Cola. And so that's a good example of the various layers of intellectual property. But typically, what we're most likely to be involved with is copyright, either as a consumer of works that we didn't create, or as a creator of original works. So it's an important concept, and you're right. We don't always think that we have something important to protect. We're used to that thing of, oh, I don't want to get, a notice from a stock photo company that I've grabbed an image off of Google that I don't have permission to use, or I'm assuming that everything that's floating out there is free to use, and that's not notice in the mail from an attorney who's not your attorney or our attorney, is a hard way to learn about copyright. So that's one of the areas that's important to me, that people understand what copyright is, what it protects, and what it doesn't protect. In terms of protecting what we create, we may think that, oh, I'm not a famous author, I'm not a movie studio, I'm not a record company, what do I have? Well, we do create original works. First of all, I want to emphasize that copyright does not protect ideas. It protects the expression of those ideas. So you get it in writing, on video, on audio. It's a fixed, tangible medium. When we're speaking, now we happen to be recording, but if we're just speaking, it's not being captured and it's not copyrighted. So it is an important consideration that we do create value. And now in the digital age, there are, pirates and thieves lurking in the cyber shadows who are eager to steal our stuff. Now we want to have an online presence because we want people to find us, but that could mean people that we would rather not might find us, know how wonderful our work is, and boom, you wake up one morning and you're scrolling through your internet, you're drinking the coffee, and you go, that looks familiar. That looks very familiar. That's mine on somebody else's site.
Yeah.
And we want to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah. So how difficult is it to copyright your information? And when would someone know that this is something I probably need to protect? Do you have any way of guidelines or things that people should think about what is it that I should protect? Do I protect every word I say? Should I, or how do I know I'm crossing into that?
Well, certainly put that in a circle and your name.
Yeah. How do I know?
If there's something very precious to you, maybe a program, a course, maybe a collection of blog posts, a collection of photos. There are ways to register collections of things, but you might want to register your videos, your podcasts, anything that you think is that you would really be upset about if you found someone else using it. Sometimes we're flattered that someone else likes our stuff, but we might be flattered for only a split second and then realize somebody else is benefiting from our hard creative work that we put time and talent, money, blood, sweat, and maybe a few tears into creating, and then having it boom. So that's something that we as people who post on the internet also need to be careful of. For example, blogs can often be victims of theft. And so putting a copyright notice on your blog posts is an important warning. Again, many times those kinds of things just keep honest people honest. And if
Right.
someone wants to steal your content, they will find a way to do it. But I advocate minimizing that risk. And so once you're ready to release your beautiful work, that could be the time to submit the registration. And also, once you've released it, you want to track and see how it's being used. So that creating Google Alerts, for example, with your name, your key phrases. Maybe you have a really unique phrase that you use that no one else is likely to think of. Making that a Google Alert so that you can know if something is happening and take measures. But I have a very proactive stance that we be educated and that we know how to minimize that risk so we're not knocked off our goals and our path. And this is important for all kinds of organizations, businesses, but also nonprofits, including churches. And there can be some confusion around that. People thinking, oh, I'm a nonprofit, so it doesn't apply to me. Copyright doesn't apply to me. Well, a nonprofit may have tax advantages, but is not exempt from copyright. And that can be very confusing for churches. And churches depend so much on volunteers. So it's important to educate. And in any organization, we're trying to be good stewards of our money, but particularly in churches. And so we might think, oh, I've got to stretch my budget as far as I can. So I need some more copies of this anthem for the choir. I'll just photocopy it. But then we also have the teaching of thou shalt not steal.
Right.
And the laborer deserves their wages. And so behind this piece of work, whatever it is someone who created it and depends on it as their living. So that's one of the things that I like to examine with churches. It happens with music, it happens with church school materials, it happens with all kinds of things. Certainly the pandemic taught many of us that we needed to get licenses to be able to broadcast our services for people at home, since we weren't being in person. So there are all these little nooks and crannies. When someone comes to me and asks me, is it okay if I use this? The best answer is, it depends.
Yeah.
It's very situationally based. Oftentimes in the past, when I was working with scientists, they would say, is it okay for me to use this graph from this other article? And they want me to say yes. They don't want me to say it depends. And they certainly don't want me to say no,
Right.
especially since they probably already done it.
Right.
So again, it is confusing. I like to teach basic copyright skills so that they can be used as tools to achieve your goals. And for example, with volunteers, if they're creating work, it's important that it be established who's going to own that copyright. So there are all these little things that don't make sense, and things that do make sense that aren't the law. And we as lay people just, our eyes can glaze over.
Yeah. So you do go into organizations, you help them with this topic, you make sure that they're what are some of the things that you look for? What are some of the traps that we're falling into? What do you look for when you go in, and how do you engage with people?
Well, I often do a website compliance review,
Mhm.
which I walk through the website. Are the legal ducks in a row? Are the policies there easily accessed in the footer?
Mhm.
And sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. We think that our website developer is going to handle all that, but that's not their responsibility to handle those legal things. And it's not a cookie cutter situation. Each business is unique. Not to mention that other people's terms and conditions, for example, are copyrighted. I mean, talk about getting in trouble twice.
Right.
Then I looked at their website, what's on it, especially images. How did they get there? Who put them there? Do you have a license to use them? Where did you get them? Look through and talk about using C in a circle, raise the question of whether you might have something that you should consider trademarking. I don't do trademark, but there's a lot of confusion between copyright and trademark. And then, are they keeping records? Do they know where they're getting this stuff? Sort of an inventory kind of thing. Do they want to register some of their things? And how are they going to track them? Now, in an organization or a business, oftentimes you go into the staff room and you see the poster on the wall that has the minimum wage, FMLA, OSHA, various things that businesses have to comply with. So they have very detailed procedures to do that. I often wish that there was a little corner on that poster for copyright, because it's often a surprise to us when there's a copyright situation, whether we have licensed something or not, whether we have things we've created that we would like to protect or even license for others to use. I like to help them, organization, well, of any size, single or multiple people, develop best practices. What are some guidelines of how we're going to use third-party content or content we didn't create? And just have that as a basis. When should we be thinking about permission? When should we look for something else that we can use? And then the next tier, as appropriate, is training staff who may be in the offices doing search, copy, paste, send as fast as their fingers will fly. So training them in things to be watching for and when they might need to seek permission, those kinds of things. So I like to have a organization, a business, whatever, be educated as a group to all have the same mission, and then having these best practices is just part of their protection.
That's awesome. And so again, as those who have been following me and those who are thinking about, yeah, I need Yvette's coaching to be able to go and fulfill my purpose and really bring to life what I have in mind. I'm hoping that you're hearing what Barbara's saying and not hearing it from a perspective of, oh, that's one more thing I have to do and I can't do it, so I'm causing it to stop. No, the intent of bringing this forward and Barbara's services forward is to make sure that when you go and you release your voice and you release your purpose, whether it's a business or your career, even as you're creating content or you're creating ideas and things, you can protect yourself as well. Your business needs to protect yourself. Your ministry needs to protect itself. And so we are taking all the blinders off, and Barbara is bringing such a tremendous service to organizations and individuals and those who really want to make sure that every I is dotted and T's are crossed. And again, she's not an attorney, but I think bringing this awareness that we shouldn't just release stuff out there, because there are people pirating our content, pirating content, not ours. We're going to say they're not pirating ours, but we want to put things in place so they can't pirate our content. Um, they'll be just so distracted because they know now that you're so well educated, you have so many things in place, that they'll go bother somebody else
Exactly.
who has not thought about it. But I really, really appreciate all that you've been sharing with us. And can you just, I know I'm normally, I want to just spend a couple minutes before we go off. Can you help people understand just a little bit more about the difference between copyright and trademark? Because I heard when you say people get confused in that, and you're the queen of bringing us out of that murkiness. So I want people to go away very clear on that.
Well, thank you. Yes, copyright protects the expression of ideas. So once it's in a fixed format, that includes works of authorship, which is very broadly defined, literature, but also music, sound recordings. Music and sound recordings are two different things. Video, audio, sculpture, even choreography can be captured. As speakers, we need to be thinking about that. If we're sharing our wisdom with a group, who's going to own that copyright? Who's capturing it? What images am I using in my presentation? Is it okay for me to be sharing those images? Yes, what's the host going to do with it? And that needs to be a written agreement so that speakers have an extra challenge. Trademark is your brand, how you're represented. Again, Coca-Cola, the Nike swish is a trademark. It's not copyrightable. It's not long enough, creative enough. I mean, it's creative, but it's sort of your logo, your signature, how you're recognized. Golden Arches, we know immediately who that is. So protecting our brand so that the consumer is not confused. Because if somebody comes along with the same brand representation or whatever, and maybe they don't do good work, you don't want them to be confused with you. One more thing I want to share is plagiarism. We hear about plagiarism, and that's different from copyright. So plagiarism is claiming something as our own, a concept, whatever, without giving appropriate credit. Whereas copyright gives us the right to copy, distribute, create adaptations, display publicly, or perform publicly. And so those are two different things. And you can be doing infringing one or the other or both. So that's another area that it's important to distinguish. We could be using something from Shakespeare, which would no longer be protected by copyright. But if we don't give the proper citation, then we're plagiarizing Shakespeare. So it gets a little, as I said, it gets a little complicated.
Which is why we need you, right?
Well,
So I hope all of my listeners are really getting the point here. It doesn't mean for you to back up or stop or delay releasing your voice or coming forth with all your ideas or even presenting yourself in the most authentic place. No, more authentic way, and bringing your best self forward, because the world is waiting for you to show up and do what you're going to do. My intent for this conversation and Barbara's work is all to make sure that you're protected one, as you release your information, your creativity, your innovation, you know how to protect that. And also that you don't fall in the trap of getting stung because you might have inadvertently grabbed something and you had no idea that you grabbed something that was protected. So this information is on the screen where you can reach Barbara. I'm going to ask her to share anything else that she wants to share as we start to wrap up. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing this because even when we had our initial conversation, I was like, you know what, I probably need to do some more thinking around this as well in all that I produce. And I'm going to continue to produce, but I also need to make sure that what I'm doing is protected as I help those who I'm helping protect what they're doing as well, because we have some valuable work that we've released and valuable work that's coming forth. So thank you so much. Anything you want to share, anything you have coming up, anything that you want us to go and grab some of your products or something that will be beneficial to the audience, just go ahead and share. And while she's sharing, make sure you write down her contact information that's on the screen so you can get in touch with her.
Well, I consider all these wonderful things that we're creating to be our gold mine. And so my goal is to help you guard your gold mine.
That's good.
So I do have a free booklet entitled 5 Steps to Guard Your Gold Mine. And I'm happy to have you request that. It sort of just covers some basics to get you thinking, but I'd be very happy to share that and then have a conversation with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What a wonderful gift. Protecting the gold mine. There it is right there. More confirmation that what you have inside of you is a gold mine, and no longer letting anybody stop you from releasing it, but bringing it forth. Whether you're a company taking it to the next level, everybody is in a place of rediscovering who they are and what they're supposed to be doing in this world as it's being reshaped right now in front of us. Barbara, I do sincerely thank you for coming. I thank you for this embarking on this new friendship and collaborations. I expect that we'll be doing more together.
I hope so.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll be able to visit sometime because you're not too far from me, right? And up in Boston, right? Up in Massachusetts.
Yeah, up in Massachusetts, yes.
Up in Massachusetts. So everybody in churches, I know we have a lot of ministry gifts on that follow me. Take heed to what she shared about the churches and how we're using information in our churches. And especially now that we've gone digital, it won't hurt to have a conversation with Barbara around how do you protect that, make sure you're not infringing and things like that. So I want to thank you all for joining. Share, like this. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Share, because I know that there's many more people that need to hear this message and hear what Barbara is bringing forth, and to be coached. If you need to be coached in bringing forth what you're doing, remember, Destiny Speak Out Loud has already begun. It started, and you could be a part of that community where you're bringing it forth, but protect it, because Barbara is helping us. Thank you for joining us. Have an amazing day and have an awesome weekend. And I'll add that link to that wonderful gift that Barbara is giving us in all the links in the conversations that we have everywhere it's posted. Thank you again, Barbara.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.